evening turned out to be extremely disgusting. The gray gloom of a tedious, drizzling rain seemed to be just waiting for the thick darkness to fall, so that it could fall to the ground with disgusting moisture. Raising the collar of my jacket, I ran to the bus stop, hoping to find at least some shelter under a small iron canopy. The clock showed 12:30 at night, and I still had time to catch the last bus. The gray ribbon of the highway glittered in the yellow light of roadside lamps. I nervously looked into the distance, hoping to finally notice the headlights of the long-awaited transport. But the road was deserted and quiet. Only the monotonous rustle of autumn rain on the iron roof disrupted the static of the hibernating city. The bus seemed to appear out of nowhere, as if woven from a veil of gray water mist. I didn't even hear the rumbling of the running engine, lost in my thoughts. He did not slow down, apparently deciding to skip an empty stop in such weather. Stepping onto the road, I waved my hands. The car slowed down gently, the brakes squeaking, but the doors remained closed. The driver seemed to be contemplating whether to let me in. Cursing quietly, I was about to slam my fist on the doors when they opened with a quiet hiss. Inwardly rejoicing that I would be home in half an hour, I stepped inside. The salon was empty. No wonder, in such and such weather. And it was cold here, strangely, unusually cold. I rolled my shoulders, trying to drive away the involuntary trembling, but the chill only intensified. In addition, a strange feeling appeared in my consciousness and began to slowly grow stronger, some kind of vague, not yet clearly defined anxiety. As if somewhere, very close, hidden from view, danger lurked. I involuntarily ran my gaze around the empty salon. Nothing unusual, rows of chairs covered in black dermantine. New, crispy dermantine. Not a scratch on the handrails or walls. The novelty stung the eye unpleasantly, only intensifying the vague anxiety. So what? I tried to reassure myself, are there not many new buses on the route? It turned out bad. Or rather, it didn't work out at all. By the way, what route is this? I asked myself a reasonable question. Having immediately climbed inside, I didn't even bother to look at the sign on the windshield. I suddenly wanted to jump out of the bus at full speed. The desire turned out to be so strong and unexpected that I was even scared. And suddenly I realized what was bothering me so much. Smell. There was a smell of something unpleasant, dreary and aching, spruce branches from which reeds are woven, incense, and cheap red wine. Associations came to mind of their own accord and completed the picture of general internal turmoil. Something was wrong with me, or something unusual was happening around. Exhaling slowly, I stood up and walked to the driver's seat, intending to ask to be dropped off immediately. Please stop. The phrase ended by itself. I froze, not believing what I was seeing. A dead man was sitting in the driver's seat, a pale, waxy face, unnaturally sharpened features, and a mask of serene, lifeless calm. The hands of the corpse lay motionless on the steering wheel. The engine hummed loudly. The shiny wet ribbon of the road spread under the wheels. Road to hell. I backed away, not daring to take my horror-filled gaze from the dead body. The heart seemed to freeze for a second, then sank somewhere down into the stomach area, beating at a frantic rhythm. The dead man turned his head slightly, as if responding to my voice. A creepy half-smile touched his lips. He seemed to silently say, "No, my friend, now non-stop." Clumsily waving my arms, I collapsed into the seat, but immediately jumped up. Horror rolled in like ice water from an overturned bucket, twisted the muscles with spasms, making the body somehow hard and alien. I wanted to scream wildly, heart-rendingly, but I just wheezed. Run. Consciousness was strained, the only thought among the spreading, frozen emptiness. I turned to the door, intending to open it with my hands or a good kick. The horror bubbling inside gave me strength and spurred me on, and once again he froze, his mouth parted in surprise. There was no front door. At all. Only thick glass from floor to ceiling, with the black edge of the seal along the contour. Yes, I croaked. How can this be? My strength suddenly left me, as if blown away by the wind. My legs became weak. I grabbed the handrail to avoid falling. And only now I noticed that he was not alone in the salon. Closer to the back area, in the aisle between the chairs, with her back to me, stood a woman. A second ago, I could have sworn that she was not there. The stranger seemed to appear out of thin air in a single elusive moment. I silently looked at my unexpected companion. Tall, in a stylish black raincoat to mid-thigh, leather boots with high heels. Long dark hair is gathered at the back of the head into a ponytail. The woman seemed to sense my gaze and slowly turned her head. She could be called pretty and even beautiful, but her sharp facial features created a repulsive impression. Thin lips, sharp nose, scattered eyebrows. The gaze of his icy blue eyes is piercing, icy, and somehow lifeless. There was an icy coldness in him. I swallowed nervously, not taking my eyes off the stranger's face. A tangle of monstrous, inexplicable phenomena grew like a snowball. The familiar world was rapidly sliding beyond the edge of absurdity. Our eyes met. A shadow of sincere amazement flashed across the stranger's face. "How did you get here?" she asked in a low, deep voice. I shrugged. "I'm going home." My own voice seemed somehow alien to me. The woman stepped closer. Now the grimace of surprise was clearly visible on his face. "Home? You're on the wrong route, buddy. It's a one-way trip," she grinned. The smile came out evil, harsh. "This hasn't happened in a long time." She even clasped her hands, or rather, never. "So that like this, myself." She raised her eyebrows in surprise. The meaning of the words did not reach me at all. My gaze slid to the side, behind the stranger's back, and the picture I saw almost made me howl. Horror, already seething like a storm inside, grabbed my throat with icy, invisible fingers. There were coffins on the back platform. Covered in black cloth, 3 or 4 pieces occupied all the available space. The woman caught the eye, surprised. The voice sounded sharp, cold. "Or haven't you figured out who you're talking to yet?" I just opened and closed my mouth like a fish out of water. Consciousness balanced on a precarious edge between a nightmare reality and a dark pool of fainting. "You came yourself." "So, sorry, no options." She came even closer. The strange smell intensified, covering me with an invisible, dense cloud. It seemed to me that I felt the sweetish, luscious fluids of decay. "I'll kiss you, and it will all end." She leaned slightly. It suddenly seemed to me that the stranger's bright red lips were painted not with lipstick, but with blood. The gaze of the icy eyes penetrated my very soul, and with a shudder I felt a frightening, but at the same time enchanting feeling of touch from within. An invisible tentacle of someone else's consciousness touched my brain and penetrated into the most hidden corners. The stranger suddenly recoiled. Now there was even some fear and surprise on her face. "No." She bowed her head to her shoulder without lowering her gaze. "You are an unusual person. There are very, very few of them." The woman took a step back, looking at me like a curiosity. "Fate is always on the side of the wise, right? After all, this is your principle." She seemed to enjoy the unusual situation. All I could do was nod. The woman shook her head. It was not clear what she wanted to say. "How amazing. Until the last moment, I didn't believe that there were such people left in your world. Mostly only fools. To be honest, I'm already tired of the monotony. And here, an unexpected gift. It's a pity that I can't take it. However, it's still nice." She turned, glanced at the back platform, and grinning her old terrible smile, asked, "Do you want to take a look?" I just shook my head. My voice completely refused to obey. For a couple of moments there was silence. The strange fellow traveler looked somewhere into the void, thinking. I grabbed the handrail, afraid to move. Finally, the stranger woke up from her thoughts and cast a short glance at me. Then she waved her hand. The bus began to slow down and stopped. The door rumbled open. Now it was in place. The interior smelled of dampness and the smell of rain. "Come out," she ordered briefly. I jumped out. "You will live a long, very long time," came the voice after him. "This is what I'm telling you. Death